What if the most powerful empire in human history wasn't destroyed by barbarians or economic collapse or military failure, but by something they put in their wine every single day? What if the men who commanded legions, built the Colosseum, and governed a civilization of 70 million people were slowly, quietly being poisoned into madness? Not metaphorically, chemically. When historians describe Caligula declaring war on the ocean and ordering his soldiers to stab the waves, they call it insanity. When they describe Nero performing on stage while Rome burned, they call it narcissism. When they describe Commodus renaming Rome after himself and fighting in the gladiatorial arena as a god, they call it delusion. But what if there's a single substance that causes exactly those symptoms? Paranoia, euphoria, grandiosity, impulsive violence, cognitive collapse. A substance the Romans consumed in massive quantities every single day for centuries. What if the greatest civilization the Western world has ever seen was high? Today, we are going inside the neuroscience, the archaeology, and the very disturbing history of lead in ancient Rome. Not just the lead in their pipes, the lead in their food, their wine, their medicine, their cosmetics, their cookware. The lead that was everywhere, that tasted sweet, that the richest and most powerful people in the empire consumed the most. By the end of this video, you are not going to see Caligula as a monster. You are going to see him as a patient, and that is so much more disturbing. Rome, at its height, was a civilization of extraordinary sophistication. They had running water, underfloor heating, concrete, a legal system, a postal service. Their engineers built structures that are still standing 2,000 years later. Their philosophers produced texts that shaped Western thought for millennia. And yet, the men at the very top, the emperors who ran this machine, an astonishing number of them were, by any modern clinical standard, completely unhinged. We're not talking about one bad apple, we're talking about a pattern. Tiberius, sadistic recluse, who had people thrown off a cliff on the island of Capri for his own amusement, according to Suetonius. Caligula claimed divine status, had people executed for perceived slights, and exhibited behavior so erratic that his own Praetorian Guard eventually assassinated him. Claudius suffered from uncontrollable tremors and speech difficulties throughout his life, with episodes of sudden violent outbursts that confused even his closest allies. Nero became so consumed by paranoia that he ordered the execution of his own mother, 2 of his wives, and some of his most trusted advisors. Commodus, renamed every month of the year after his own titles, fought in the gladiatorial arena under the name Hercules Romanus and had senators executed seemingly on impulse. Historians have spent centuries trying to explain this. Power corrupts, inbreeding, the unbearable psychological pressure of absolute authority in a world full of real assassination attempts. But there is one additional explanation that keeps appearing in academic literature and not getting the attention it deserves. Imagine someone gave you a substance that made you feel like a god. It wiped out your ability to predict consequences. It made everyone around you look like a potential threat. It gave you moments of intense euphoria followed by sudden explosive rage. And the longer you took it, the less capable you became of recognizing that anything was wrong. Every single day for your entire life. That is not a thought experiment. That is a clinical description of chronic lead poisoning. The substance at the center of this story is called sapa. It was a condiment, a thick, intensely sweet syrup. It was made by boiling down grape juice or wine, sometimes reducing it by 2/3, until it became almost like molasses. The Romans used it in everything. They added it to wine to improve flavor and prevent spoilage. They used it in cooking as a substitute for honey. Wealthy households consumed it daily. It was considered a mark of sophistication and refinement. Sapa was almost always produced in lead vessels, lead-lined pots, lead cookware. When you boil acidic liquid in a lead container for hours, the lead dissolves. It reacts with the acetic acid in the grape juice to form lead acetate, a compound with a distinctly sweet taste. The Romans even had a name for it. They called it sugar of lead. They were literally boiling sweetness out of poison, and they loved it. Modern analysis of ancient Roman sapa residue has found lead concentrations ranging from 240 to over 1,000 micrograms per liter. The current safety limit set by the World Health Organization is 10 micrograms per liter. Roman aristocrats were consuming between 24 and 100 times the concentration we now consider dangerous every single day. The famous Roman aqueducts delivered water through lead pipes. The Latin word for lead is plumbum. That is literally where the word plumbing comes from. Roman engineers named the entire profession after the toxic material they were working with. The pipes were often made of solid lead sheet, rolled and soldered. Water sitting in those pipes overnight was absorbing lead the entire time. Studies of Roman-era skeletal remains have found lead concentrations in bones between 10 and 100 times higher than in pre-Roman populations from the same regions. Not slightly elevated, 10 to 100 times higher consistently across multiple sites, multiple studies, multiple centuries. While the lead pipes affected everyone, the lead in food and wine hit the wealthy hardest. The rich ate from lead-glazed pottery. They used lead-based cosmetics. Women applied lead face powder directly to their skin for years. They drank the most wine enhanced with sapa. The very habits that signaled wealth and status in Rome were the habits that delivered the highest lead concentrations. The senators, the generals, the emperors, they were being poisoned faster and more completely than anyone else in Roman society. Lead disrupts dopamine regulation in the prefrontal cortex, the neurotransmitter most associated with reward, motivation, and impulse control. The result is dysregulation, bursts of intense euphoria and grandiosity, followed by sudden aggression or paranoid collapse. People start compulsively chasing stimulation. They become impulsive in ways that override judgment. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for judgment, planning, empathy, and self-restraint, is particularly vulnerable to lead toxicity. Chronic exposure causes measurable structural changes. People lose the ability to regulate their own behavior. They act on impulse. They become disproportionately aggressive over minor provocations. Chronic lead exposure increases reactivity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. The brain begins perceiving threats that aren't there. It creates a state of chronic hypervigilance where everyone around you is potentially an enemy. One of the most insidious effects, lead impairs the ability to recognize one's own cognitive decline. The affected person feels clear, certain, powerful. They cannot see that their reasoning is broken. Grandiosity, impulsive violence, paranoid threat perception, inability to recognize one's own impairment. Ask yourself whether you have heard that description before. Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, known to history as Caligula, emperor from 37 to 41 AD. His first months in power were apparently marked by generosity and moderation. Then something changed. Within a year, he was claiming divine status and demanding to be addressed as a living god. His behavior became wildly erratic, moments of apparent warmth followed by sudden lethal violence. He reportedly invited senior senators to dinner and then dissolved into laughter, explaining he had just been thinking about how easily he could have all of them killed. Across multiple independent ancient sources, the core pattern is consistent. Early promise, rapid deterioration, grandiosity, paranoia, impulsive cruelty, total inability to recognize his own behavior as abnormal. Caligula grew up in the imperial household. He consumed imperial food, imperial wine, sapa-sweetened everything from childhood. By the time he took power at 24, he had been accumulating lead in his brain tissue for over 2 decades. Nero, emperor from 54 to 68 AD, also described as initially restrained and promising, also deteriorated dramatically. He had his mother Agrippina assassinated, apparently following a prolonged period of escalating paranoia about her influence. He had his first wife, Octavia, executed on fabricated charges. His behavior toward his inner circle became increasingly unpredictable. People who were his trusted companions one month were dead the next. He was simultaneously convinced of his own extraordinary artistic genius. He performed publicly as a singer and a lyre player. He forbade audiences from leaving his performances. When a conspiracy finally ended his reign and he was forced to flee Rome, his reported last words were, "What an artist dies in me." The combination of paranoid persecution of enemies alongside absolute conviction of personal greatness is a recognized neurological pattern. What happens when the dopamine system is chronically dysregulated? Commodus, son of Marcus Aurelius, widely considered one of the most rational and self-disciplined emperors in Roman history. Marcus Aurelius wrote the Meditations, private journals revealing a man constantly working to check his own impulses and biases. His son became the opposite of everything he represented. Commodus renamed the city of Rome after himself, Colonia Commodiana. He renamed the months of the year after his own imperial titles. He entered the gladiatorial arena to fight, not symbolically but actually, under the name Hercules Romanus, believing himself to be a literal incarnation of the demigod. He had senators and advisors executed on what appeared to be pure impulse, sometimes people he had been laughing with at dinner the same day. Marcus Aurelius lived simply and ate plainly. Commodus grew up in a later, wealthier, more elaborate imperial household, more refined food, more wine, more sapa, more lead, more of everything the Roman elite considered luxurious. None of this is a clean, single-cause explanation. History never works that way. These men also had absolute power from a young age. They lived under genuine, constant assassination risk. The culture they operated in normalized violence at a level difficult for modern people to grasp. What we can say is this: lead was a real, chronic, measurable neurological insult being delivered to the most powerful people in the empire at the highest doses, continuously from childhood. Its known effects align with the behavioral patterns we keep seeing across multiple emperors, across multiple generations. That is not nothing. Humanity eventually figured out that lead was dangerous. The evidence accumulated, the science became undeniable, and we acted on it. The United States banned lead from residential paint in 1978, from gasoline in 1996. Both decisions came decades after the science was clear, and only after prolonged lobbying campaigns arguing that the evidence was uncertain and regulation would be too costly. Does that pattern sound familiar? A 2022 study estimated that leaded gasoline exposure reduced average cognitive function across the entire American population by a measurable amount. Not one community, not one demographic, everyone. Not because nobody knew lead was dangerous, but because the systems that benefited from its continued use found ways to delay action for decades. The Romans didn't know. They had no periodic table, no toxicology, no concept of neurotransmitters. They boiled sapa in lead pots because it tasted good, and the idea that a cooking vessel could destroy a mind was simply outside their frame of understanding. We don't have that excuse. We have the science. We have the data. We have regulatory frameworks specifically designed to act on exactly this kind of evidence. And we still find reasons to move slowly when speed is expensive. The emperors we call monsters, Caligula, Nero, Commodus, they were also, in a very real sense, products of a system that poisoned the people it elevated. A system that turned sweetness into a delivery mechanism for neurological damage. a system that called lead refinement and called the result civilization. The civilization that gave us Roman law, the arch, the concept of the republic, that civilization fed its leaders poison and couldn't see what it was doing. The question worth sitting with is, what are we feeding ours? Drop a comment below. Do you think lead was a meaningful factor in Rome's decline? Or is this a case of an interesting correlation being pushed too far? I read every comment. If you want more videos like this, history and science intersecting in ways that actually matter, subscribe and hit the bell. We post every week, and the next video is right there. You're going to want to watch it.